You are listening to the Courageously Unconventional podcast. If you want to change your life and start living on your own terms, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Lynn Grogan. I'm a certified life coach, and I want to help you take action toward creating your own unconventional life. Each week, I'll share inspiring and unconventional stories from those who have gone before you, as well as actionable steps you can take to start your own unconventional path today. Let's go! Hello, my friend. I cannot believe it is the end of August already. So my husband and I are currently in Southwest Colorado, and the very first leaves are starting to change color, which makes me so excited for fall to be in full swing. It is my absolute favorite season, and I know it's just going to be beautiful here. All the leaves will be bright yellow. And so with the seasons shifting around me and probably around you, I thought it would be the perfect time to share some coaching tips for anyone going through, or maybe you're anticipating some lifestyle career changes. This episode was actually inspired by a recent coaching session. So my client was facing some big decisions, which included moving her family to a new town and changing jobs, all within a short time frame. So naturally, she had a lot of emotions and thoughts to work through. I mean, who wouldn't? So after the call, I felt so inspired to create a list of 5 tips to help you navigate any change, big or small. And even if you're currently not considering a major change, I know that there will still be something in here for you. So a disclaimer before we get going is that if any of these tips aren't landing with you or helping you, just leave them. Not every tool is for every person, or maybe not right now. And if you have any additional questions about how to use these tools or expand on them, you can always reach out to me. My email is lynn@lynngrogan.com. Okay, so are you ready? Let's dive in to 5 tips for navigating change. So my very first tip for you is just acknowledge that there's a lot going on in your life. So when you're making some big changes, like I said, moving, switching jobs, something like that, things are going to be far from routine. And it is natural for our brains and our bodies to sound the alarm when faced with uncertainty because we are wired to keep ourselves safe. And major lifestyle shifts do not fit neatly into the safe zone. So sometimes when I'm coaching a client and they've told me like all the things that are going on, they'll give me a big list. I'll actually start with saying like, hey, can we just like acknowledge there's a lot going on right now? And sometimes just hearing that, like someone else saying it or even telling it to yourself can bring such a relief. It's like finally letting out that breath, like the you've been holding in and releasing tension you didn't even realize you had. So I really do think it's important to normalize the fact that even if the changes are exciting, even if you're looking forward to them, they can still feel really, really stressful when you think about them. So acknowledging what you're going through, it doesn't mean that you're playing the victim or that you're feeling sorry for yourself. It just means you're being honest about the intensity of the moment rather than pretending everything's normal or that it should be emotion-free just because the outcome may be positive. So once you acknowledge the stress, try adding on a reassuring statement like, yeah, this is a lot and I can handle this. Or something like, this is a lot, but we'll figure it out. So when things feel particularly stressful, repeating a thought like this can remind you that despite any chaos that you may be experiencing, you're also capable and resourceful. Step number 2, separate the facts from your thoughts. So this is one of my favorite coaching tools to create awareness, especially if you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, stuck, or all of the above. Okay, so how does it work? So separating the facts from your thoughts helps you take a bigger picture look at what's going on in your mind. So the facts are going to be data points from your life. They're objective, they're neutral, they're things that most everyone could agree upon. So facts are going to be things like weather, the time, or the exact words somebody said. Thoughts, on the other hand, are your personal interpretation of those facts, and they're often emotionally charged, or they come with a lot of feeling. So I'll give you an example. A fact of something that you're facing could be that your work contract states you have to give 90 days written notice if you resign. That's neutral. There's no emotion attached to it. It's just what your contract says. But your thoughts about 90 days notice might be, oh my gosh, they'll be so mad when I quit, or the next 90 days are going to be miserable. So, these thoughts about the resignation process are what create your emotions like fear or dread. The resignation process itself is neutral. It's just something you agreed on with the company when you signed your contract. So, once you understand that your feelings come from your thoughts or your perspective, not from the facts, you can empower yourself to shift your thinking and take responsibility for your emotions and figure out if you want to have a different way of thinking and feeling about things. So, to practice this one, I would grab a pen and paper and I would draw a line down the middle of the page. And on the left hand side, I would write down all the facts, just bare bone facts of what you're facing. And on the right hand side, I would list all your thoughts about those facts. So if a thought like the next 90 days will be miserable is already making you feel miserable, ask yourself, well, what else could I be thinking about this situation? Or how might someone else with a different perspective see this? So, when I was leaving my last job and anticipating the final days were going to be challenging, one way I shifted this for myself is I really focused on the colleagues that I loved and adored. And I practiced the thought like, I am going to do everything that I can do to set them up for success. This thought was just as believable to me as the idea that things were going to be miserable. And it was super helpful to me to redirect my attention to something else that I could work on in the last days rather than having them be filled with so much drama. So play around with different ways of thinking about the facts in your life and find some alternative ways of thinking that seem helpful and true to you. Doing this can open you up to a different way of thinking that changes your entire experience. Okay, tip number 3. Having lots of emotions doesn't mean that you're making the right or wrong decision. So I think there's a common misconception that if you're making a big change, you should feel great about it or positive all the time. And then if doubt or fear creeps in, it must mean that you're making a mistake and you should cease activity immediately. But this isn't true. So major changes naturally bring on a lot of emotions. Like I said, doubt, fear, excitement, because our brains, like I mentioned before, are wired to keep us safe by sticking to familiar routines and patterns. So it doesn't mean that anything has gone wrong if you're feeling all the feels. In fact, it's a sign that your brain is responding normally to uncertainty. Okay, and it's also helpful to remember that the people around you who are impacted by the decisions you're making and the change that's coming up are probably also feeling something similar to what you are. Instead of assuming something's wrong, that they're feeling that way and that you have to fix them in order to move forward or to feel better, you can ask yourself, like, what if nothing has gone wrong with the way that I'm feeling right now or the way that they're feeling? What if this is just a normal reaction to change and I don't have to fix anything? So, from that space, if it feels available to you, you could be open and vulnerable about your feelings and invite them to do the same. A simple question like, hey, how are you feeling about everything? Paired with truly listening to them, not trying to fix things, can help you feel very connected in those moments. And it can remind you that you just don't need to fix their emotions, just make space for them to express what's on their mind. And I will be completely honest with you, this is an area of my life that I actively work on because it can seem that something has gone terribly wrong if you or the people around you are feeling all the feels. So I totally get it. It can take a lot of reminding yourself, okay, nothing has gone wrong. Nothing has gone wrong that I'm feeling way. It is normal to feel this way in the face of major change. So again, remember, strong emotions aren't a sign something's gone wrong. They're just a normal part of the human experience and they don't need to be fixed or changed. So tip number 4, compile a list of questions your brain is already asking. And try not to judge yourself for having lots of concerns. It is normal. You've introduced big changes and your brain is demanding answers. When these questions stay in your brain, they're the things that are likely to keep you up in the middle of the night. So grab a pen and paper and write down every question, big or small, that pops up as you navigate these changes. Questions might range from, will my family hate us for moving? Will I find a job? How will we sell the house in time? What will people think? Then next to every question you have, mark the things that are within your control. These are going to be, like I said, the questions like, will you live or work? Or how you'll feel about the upcoming change. These are things that you can actually probably answer, even if it might take a lot of work. So identify all of those on the list. Then next, identify the questions that are out of your control, like how other people will react or how they will feel. You cannot control other people's thoughts and feelings. even if it seems like you should be able to. And these are things that you'll want to work through in a different capacity. What you can control is your reaction to people, like how you respond to them. Even if you can't change how they think and feel, you can change your experience of being around them. So again, go through and make a list of questions your brain is already asking, answer the ones that you can, and work through the ones that you have no control over. All right, our final tip, tip number 5, is to borrow confidence from your past experiences with uncertainty and change. Our brains will naturally look to the past for evidence about whether or not we might be able to handle new challenges. Unfortunately, our brains tend to focus on moments when things did not go well. So you're going to need to consciously direct your brain to examples of where you succeeded, even if those successes were small. I would make a list of everything you can think of, again, big or small, where you were navigating situations where things were uncertain and you were making some big changes in your life. And if you can't find personal examples, you can always borrow from the experiences of others. So these might be people that you know personally, or maybe stories that you've read someplace with people who have faced similar challenges. Whatever you're going through is likely not unique. I know it might seem special and unique, but I promise you it's probably not. Many people have probably faced the same situation and come out fine, even if your brain tries to convince you otherwise as a way of protecting you. So ask yourself, have I gone through something similar before? What helped me then? And direct your mind towards moments of resilience rather than failure. And like I said, you can always find someone you trust who has been through a similar experience, like a parent or a friend or a mentor, and talk to them and get their words of wisdom. All right, that was tip number 5, and that wraps up the 5 tips for navigating change. I'm going to quickly recap the list for you just so it's on your mind. Step number 1 was to acknowledge that a lot is going on in your life. It is okay to recognize the weight of big transitions and that you're capable of figuring them out. Step number 2, separate the facts from your thoughts. By distinguishing what the neutral facts are and your thoughts and perspectives of those facts, you can gain awareness and empower yourself to take on a different perspective if that makes sense for you. Step number 3, emotions don't mean you're making the wrong decision. It is normal to feel a range of emotions when making big changes. Feeling fear or doubt doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Step number 4, compile a list of questions your brain is already thinking. Write down everything your mind is offering you, big or small, and sort through what is in your control to solve and what is not. And number 5, borrow confidence from past experiences. Reflect on times when you've handled uncertainty and change before, and draw on the strength from yourself or others who have gone through similar situations. All right, my friend, I hope these tips help you navigate whatever change is coming your way. And remember, change is a part of life, and you are fully capable of handling it. I know you can, even when it feels daunting. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend. Until next time. Hey friend, thank you for listening to today's conversation. If you're considering a major career or lifestyle change and you want to talk to someone about this, I'm here for you. You can learn how to work with me one-on-one on my website, which is lynngrogan.com, and I also have details in the show notes. See you next time.